Static electricity, man. I don't know if you could tell, but I have a somewhat different background because Ken moved into his new house today, which was pretty unexpected. Like, we were planning on it being tomorrow at the very least, and if not tomorrow, like tonight. So he actually was allowed to move into it last night, but he decided to go ahead and wait until this morning, and he actually was supposed to be going to work, but he stayed up all day. So we were moving basically all day. I even got 12,000 steps in, which I have not gotten even remotely that many steps in since before I started working at Dance Comp, back whenever I worked at Dairy Queen. So yeah, it's been an extremely busy day, and we've just been crazy. Basically, I just wanted to do today's video on my wreck that I had back in August. But my wreck totaled my Explorer. Which it was a Ford Explorer Expedition, and it was in 1995, which many people like to argue, like on the internet, whenever I would try to like look up stuff to see if we could get it worked on or anything. People would try to argue that those cars literally didn't exist because they were only made for 1 year. And I loved my Explorer. It was an amazing car. It got me from point A to point B pretty beautifully, and it was super heavy duty and like didn't scare the crap out of me to drive, which I don't know if I can say that about my Volvo, but it was an amazing car and I completely totaled it. And it was one of those experiences that just kind of like rocks your belief system and shakes your belief that you'll live forever, and you know, like that thing, oh, that'll never happen to me because it's always going to happen to somebody else. Well, I was that somebody else in this situation, and it was earth-shattering and scary and horrible and terrifying. Everything that you could possibly put into horrifying words, that's what it was. Those are exactly what describes that wreck. It was just the worst experience ever. So I'm basically just going to explain to you how it happened, what happened to me, and why my whole entire belief system on my driving capabilities, which I still believe that I was always a great driver, and I still am a great driver, which I know everyone says that about themselves, but whatever. I have became much less careless since this wreck, which I think is just something that you really just have to grow out of. You have to just become an adult and realize, you know, you're not going to live forever. You do take risks by being careless with driving, and it's not worth it. It's really not. It's just something that every person out there, young or old, needs to realize. It's not okay to be reckless whenever you're driving. And I wasn't even being reckless in this situation. I was driving just like anyone drives on a normal night. It just, the circumstances just weren't good in this instance. And it made me realize so many things that day. But to start off, Ken and I were driving separately back to my house from his house. And the road that you had to take from his house to my house is a country road. And the speed limit is probably like 30 or 40. I can't really remember, honestly, even since then. Like, it's just one of those roads you don't pay attention to the speed limit. I'm pretty sure it was 40. But on this specific night, I was going extremely slow because Ken was behind me. And I was just joking. Like, I was like driving like literally slower than 20 miles per hour. And Ken was behind me, and he was getting sick of it because I was just kidding around, you know, like driving really slow, like on purpose. And so he passed me because, you know, he's a guy, and guys do that. They're like, oh, we have to drive fast, blah, 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 which actually at the time I was a faster driver than he was. But I was driving slow just as a joke, you know, to be like, ha, you can't go any faster because I'm in front of you, you know. So he passed me. And up until that point, we had both been going 20 miles per hour. And then after the 20 miles per hour, he sped up, and he was probably going like at least 55 by the time that I actually wrecked. But I was being pretty chill, you know, like I wasn't really in a rush to like catch up with him or anything. And so I was just driving pretty slowly, and he was easily putting distance between us, like very quickly. And so we were actually talking on the phone the whole entire time, from the time that we left the house until I wrecked. It's just something I always call him. I don't know, it's a dorky relationship thing, but I just call him because I miss him and I want to talk to him. Even though he's in the car right in front of me or behind me, I just like talking to him, especially whenever I'm driving, because I don't like being alone whenever I'm driving. I like being on the phone with somebody, and Ken is, of course, the person that I talk to, because he's like the only person that I talk to. So I was talking to him on the phone, and he had passed me and was putting distance between us. He told me, "Paige, do you have your seatbelt on?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Put it on." And I was like, "No." And I was just kidding. I was actually putting it on ever since he said, "Do you have your seatbelt on?" And so I was putting on my seatbelt, and I put on my seatbelt. I got it clicked. I was still on the phone, which I had like put my phone on my shoulder and like clicked my seatbelt. And so then I put my hand back on my phone, and I was driving. I like looked up, and it had been like a couple seconds since I had like been putting on my seatbelt, but I never looked away from the road. I still was looking at the road. But like once I looked up and I realized, hey, I'm going off the road slightly. But you know, like consciously, I was just like, okay, I'm going off the road slightly, but I'm just gonna like let myself slightly go off the road and then go back onto the road. Just, you know, like you don't want to jerk onto the road because that would potentially cause your car to like lose control. So I was like making a conscious decision to just slightly let myself go off the road just because I thought that would be the safer decision. And so I had just put my seatbelt on, like literally seconds before this, and I was letting myself go off the road, and I still had my hand on my phone, on my ear, and I let myself go off the road, and then I was going to slightly pull back onto the road. And when I let myself go off of the road, I, at the time, didn't know this, but I just so happened to hit the exact spot on the road where there was a drop, like literally this much on the concrete. And it caused my tire to go flat. And it instantaneously, in that moment, and this is an SUV Explorer, okay? It's not just like a little car that has tiny wheels. Like I had off-roading wheels on my car. So this is how dangerous and extreme and life-threatening this situation was. The whole time my window was rolled down, I lost control of the car because my tire went flat. And as soon as I lost control of the car started whipping. And you know how whenever you're sliding on ice, you try to like correct it? Because like if it whips this way, you're supposed to turn into it. And if it whips this way, then you're supposed to turn into that. Well, I was trying to do that. But without having that tire there was no way for my wheels to actually correct themselves because there was nothing. It was literally balancing on 3 tires. So there was nothing that I could do, no matter what I did. And I was really trying, like honestly, I was. And I could feel the car going more and more out of control as I was doing it. The whole entire time, which this was a matter of tiny, tiny, minuscule seconds. Ken was in front of me. He saw the whole thing from his rearview mirror. I still had my hand up to my ear with my phone in my hand the entire time. My car flips, okay, and rolls. And honestly, at that point, I was just screaming bloody murder. It was moving so fast, but it was like I was going slow motion. I could feel myself rolling over, and it was like I was rolling in slow motion. It was just insane. And honestly, it was the most horrific thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life. And every bit of it happened in slow motion. I felt myself rolling over, and honestly, I did not move. My whole body completely stayed glued to my chair the entire time. Thank God I had my seatbelt on. If I hadn't, I would have went out the window without a doubt. By the time that I got out of the car, which Ken, as I was screaming bloody murder on the phone, drove backwards as fast as he could, which is totally dangerous, and I don't ever recommend anybody driving backwards on a road to get to their girlfriend who's screaming bloody murder in their wrecked car. And I was screaming, and he finally gets up to my window, which was down. It was down in the first place. And he reaches through my window. He's like, "Paige, you're fine. You're fine. Stop screaming." And I was just screaming bloody murder. He's like, "Paige, put the phone down." And I couldn't. Like, all I could do was sit in my car and scream into the phone. I saw him standing there, and I was so shocked that I just could not do anything. And I was so in shock at the whole thing. As soon as I stopped screaming and as soon as I was able to gain enough awareness of the situation, the only thing in the world that mattered to me, I did not give a crap if my leg had been chopped off, which in all reality, I had not even gotten a bruise. Like, I did not even wake up the next morning with a single sore muscle. It was insane. I was the luckiest person to ever total their car and flip it and not walk away with even a sore muscle. It was a miracle. But the first thing that I could say, he was telling me to stop screaming, and by the time that I stopped screaming, all I could say was, "Get me out of this car, get me out of this car, get me out of this car, get me out of this car." And as soon as I got out of the car, my ceramics, what has happened to them? That's all I cared about, because I had a gigantic box of ceramics in my vehicle from like the end of the semester. All of my work, like that I hadn't already taken home, boxed up in my car, and I lost like over half of it. It was so traumatic. It was terrible. But I walked away with not a scratch, not a bruise, not a sore muscle. And Ken actually walked away with more injuries than I did, because whenever he went into my back seat to get all my crap out of my car because it was getting towed away, he cut his leg wide open with a freaking piece of glass, because he put his shin into my seat with the glass shards all in it, and he cut his leg open, which I was freaking out about because his leg was like gushing blood, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you're gonna die." But I was so overwhelmingly, there were so many things going through my head. And ever since then, it causes me such anxiety, because now I drive a little Volvo, and it's so much less like secure, and like it's so much more terrifying, because if that vehicle went off the road and was able to lose control that easily, then if I went off the road with this vehicle even a centimeter, it's just like I could die like instantly. Like, that's how I feel, and it's just, I don't want you guys to have that happen to you. I was not under the influence of anything. I was completely sober. I was not tired. I was not upset in any way. I was not emotionally distraught. There was no weather. It was nighttime. That's the only circumstance that could have even remotely potentially been dangerous. It was nighttime. There was no animals that ran out in front of me. Nothing bad happened to me. I just literally went off the road by choice, and I very, very nearly lost my life. My car landed on its 4 tires, and it was less than 10 feet away from a giant rock ravine where there was like a drain pipe into the rocks. So if it had hit those rocks, who knows what would have happened. And within minutes of me getting out of my car, my whole entire windshield smashed in and completely covered my front seats. So by the time that I got out of my car, got all of the stuff out of my car, and had been up on the road, and then looked back at my car, the windshield had fallen in. So, I mean, that right there tells you how close I was to being injured or anything. Like, it's just, I was so lucky, and it's just so unbelievable that that could have happened to me. And it's just, I want to tell you guys how scary and how easily anything can happen. It's just unbelievable how easily your car can lose control, or you can lose control of your car, and it's dangerous. And most people, especially teenagers, don't take that seriously, and they definitely don't take it seriously enough. I honestly, up until I wrecked my car, I was always like, Mom, you're crazy. There's nothing gonna happen. I'm gonna be fine. So, for the wrapping up of this video, basically, I just want to strain to you guys how serious it is to get behind the wheel of a vehicle. And it doesn't matter if you're sober or if you're perfectly capable. Anything can happen, and I just want you to be careful, because honestly, you being careful and your neighbor being careful makes the whole entire road much, much, much safer. And it's such a serious thing that I don't think enough, especially young people, take seriously. And I just want to make sure that you guys understand that. So I am going to bed in Ken's new house, which we're pretty excited about. And I hope you guys liked my video. I will be talking to you guys tomorrow. So if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up below and give me any feedback or any personal stories in the comments below. And subscribe to my channel. Bye guys. See you tomorrow.